The Marshall farmhouse stood at the very edge of the world, or at least it felt that way to Eli. It was a white house with a sagging porch, surrounded by fields of corn that whispered secrets on the wind. Beyond the fields, a dark line of trees marked the beginning of the Iowa woods. The woods were deep and old, a place of shadows and strange noises. Eli's dad said they were just trees, but Eli knew better. He felt eyes watching him from between the dark trunks, something ancient and unseen. The air grew colder the closer you got to that tree line, and the birdsong always seemed to stop right at the edge. It was a place where sunlight struggled to reach the ground, and mysteries seemed to grow as thick as the tangled underbrush. His only real friend, the one who understood the woods weren't just woods, was Shadow. Shadow was a black Labrador, with fur as dark as a starless night and eyes the colour of warm honey. He was more than a pet. He was Eli's guardian. From the moment Eli was old enough to toddle into the yard, Shadow was there, a silent, watchful presence. He would steer Eli away from the deep well with a gentle nudge of his wet nose. He once stood between Eli and a rattling timber snake, his growl so low and fierce that the snake slithered back into the tall grass. He never let Eli wander too close to the woods alone, always placing his big body between the boy and the beckoning darkness. Shadow was a constant comfort against the things that made Eli's heart beat fast. When thunderstorms rolled across the flat Iowa plains, shaking the old farmhouse to its bones, Shadow would rest his heavy head on Eli's lap. His steady breathing was a better comfort than any blanket. When strange sounds echoed from the woods at night, a twig snapping, a low moan that wasn't the wind, Shadow would be at the window, a low rumble in his chest, his ears pricked and alert. He was a silent promise of safety, a living shield against the creeping fears that came with living so close to a place so wild and unknown. Eli and Shadow had a bond that needed no words. They spent their days exploring the edges of the cornfields, chasing grasshoppers, and lying in the shade of the big oak tree. Eli would tell Shadow all his secrets, whispering them into his soft, floppy ears. He told him about his fear of the dark woods, about the feeling of being watched, about the whispers he sometimes thought he heard. Shadow would just listen, his tail thumping a steady rhythm against the dusty ground. He seemed to understand everything. He was Eli's protector, his confidant, his shadow in every sense of the word, and Eli couldn't imagine a single day without him. The day Shadow didn't wake up was the day the world turned grey. He had grown old, his muzzle frosted with white, his steps slow and careful, but his eyes never lost their loving glow, not until the very end. Eli found him in his favourite spot on the porch, curled up as if he were sleeping. But he was cold, his chest was still. A terrible silence filled the farm, a quiet so loud that it hurt Eli's ears. The cornfields seemed to droop, and the woods looked darker and more threatening than ever before. Without Shadow, the world felt unsafe, a place full of sharp edges and hidden dangers. The shield was gone. Eli's father dug a grave under the big willow tree by the creek, the one where Eli and Shadow used to sit and watch the water flow by. They wrapped him in his favourite old blanket. Eli's mum cried, her tears falling onto the soft earth. But Eli couldn't cry. A cold, hard knot was stuck in his throat. He just stared at the mound of fresh dirt, feeling a hollowness inside him that was bigger than the whole state of Iowa. The world had lost its colour, its warmth, its protector. The silence from the porch was a heavy weight, pressing down on the entire farm, making everything feel empty and wrong. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in sad shades of orange and purple, Eli went back to the willow tree alone. He knelt by the grave, touching the cool dirt with his fingertips. He thought of all the times Shadow had saved him, from snakes and deep wells and the terrifying darkness of the woods. He remembered the comforting weight of Shadow's head on his lap during thunderstorms. He remembered the low growl that warned away unseen things in the night. He was the bravest dog in the whole world, and now he was gone, leaving Eli all alone to face the shadows. A cool breeze rustled the willow branches, making them whisper like they were talking to him. Eli closed his eyes and made a promise. He whispered it to the ground, to the tree, to whatever was listening. "You were the best boy, Shadow," he said, his voice choking. "You always protected me, and I'll never forget you. You'll always be my guardian." always." As he said the words, he felt a strange sudden warmth on the back of his neck, like a soft pant of breath. For a fleeting moment, he could have sworn he smelled the familiar scent of his dog, of dry fur and summer dust. A few weeks later, the grief was still a heavy blanket over Eli. He was playing with his toy soldiers near the front gate as dusk settled, turning the world into shades of blue and grey. The woods were a wall of blackness now, and the familiar feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. A car he didn't recognize slowed down and pulled over. A man with a too-wide smile and eyes that didn't smile with his mouth got out. He told Eli his puppy had run off and asked if Eli could help him look for it. Just over there, near the edge of the woods. A cold fear prickled Eli's skin. His dad's warnings about strangers echoed in his head. The man took a step closer, his voice sickly sweet. "Come on, kid. I'll give you $20 if you help me find him." He pointed toward the darkest part of the tree line, where the shadows were deepest. Eli froze. His heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to run, but his feet felt like they were glued to the ground. The man's smile faded, replaced by an ugly impatience. He took another step, reaching a hand out towards Eli's arm. The air grew suddenly, unnaturally cold. The cheerful chirping of the crickets stopped all at once, plunging the evening into a dead silence. Then, it happened. From the corner of his eye, Eli saw a shape forming in the twilight. It was a dog, big and black, but it was made of shadow and moonlight. It was transparent. You could see the fence and the road right through it, but its form was unmistakable. It was Shadow. A low growl filled the air, a sound that wasn't real but was felt deep inside Eli's bones. It was a sound of pure menace, a warning from beyond the grave. The ghostly dog stood between Eli and the stranger, its head lowered, its spectral lips curled back to reveal gleaming, phantom teeth. The man stopped dead, his eyes wide with disbelief and terror. He stared at the shimmering, ghostly form of the dog, his face turning pale. He stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet. He didn't say a word. He just scrambled back into his car, slammed the door and sped away, tires squealing on the pavement. The ghostly form of Shadow watched until the car was gone. Then he turned his head, looked at Eli with those familiar, loving eyes, and faded away into the evening mist, leaving behind only the scent of willow leaves and cold night air. Eli ran inside, screaming for his mum. He told her everything, the words tumbling out in a rush. The man, the car, the ghost. His father was skeptical, saying it was just his imagination, his grief playing tricks on him. But his mother looked at his pale face and trembling hands, and she believed him. She held him tight and said some dogs are too loyal to ever truly leave. The next day, his dad checked the new security camera he'd installed by the gate. The footage was blurry and distorted, full of static right at the time of the incident, but through the haze you could see it, the man reaching, and a dark, dog-like shape appearing from nowhere. His mother started talking about old stories, local folklore she'd heard growing up in the area, legends of guardian spirits that lived in the ancient woods. They said these spirits sometimes attached themselves to families, protecting them from harm. They were said to appear in the form of animals, a great owl, a clever fox, or sometimes a loyal dog. They were watchers, protectors against the darkness that sometimes seeped out of the woods. She wondered aloud if Shadow hadn't just been a dog, but something more. Maybe he was one of those spirits all along, sent to watch over their family. As the years passed, Shadow returned. He never appeared as a solid ghost again, but his presence was always felt when danger was near. One winter, when a fire started in the barn, a frantic, ghostly barking that only Eli could hear woke him just in time. Another time, when a branch was about to crash down on his little sister in the yard, a sudden cold wind, smelling of Shadow, pushed her out of the way. Each time his form was less distinct, more like a shimmer in the air, a cold spot, or a whisper of a growl on the wind. He was becoming less of a ghost and more of a pure, protective spirit. Eli, now a teenager, no longer feared the woods. He understood. Standing by the willow tree, he would often feel that familiar, comforting presence beside him. He realized Shadow wasn't just protecting him from kidnappers or falling branches. He was guarding the gate. He was standing between the Marshall family and something else. something much older and darker that lived in the heart of the woods. The thing Eli had always felt watching him was real, but he wasn't afraid, because he had a guardian, a shadow at the gate, a spirit of loyalty and love, watching over them all.